What is going on, YouTube? Welcome to a 3v3 best of 5 show match in between Hera+Capoch and MarineLord versus VortiX+LucifroN and TheMista. As we jump into the first game, I'll explain where this comes from because, long story short, we do have a 3v3 team game tournament coming up in early January that is actually hosted by me. Now, the show match wasn't hosted by me, this was hosted by Hera, I do believe, and this was basically a practice for the event. They are going to be playing a best of 5 on the tournament maps over here. And Hera+Capoch and MarineLord will be one team for the event. VortiX+LucifroN and TheMista will be another. So as the game loads up, we'll be taking a look at the game number 1. All of these will be from recorded games because these happened earlier today, but that should not have any consequences over here for us now. There's a couple of things with team games that I haven't figured out just yet, simply because I haven't really casted a lot of team games. So the first thing, and I actually am interested in your input on this, do you think that I should just remove this panel over here on the top left? I'll be casting a lot of team games in the coming weeks because of the team game events, so makes sense to figure out how to do things over here in a way that you guys like it. But I think that this panel is just way too big for us, too much data, even with the income per minute that many of you like. I feel like it's just taking up too much space over here, so we'll probably only open it every once in a while. Alright, with that being said, let's take a look at the teams. There is no option to pick colors in team games, so because of that, there is no way to organize colors like cold versus warm colors, and I do believe that the players aren't even listed according to their teams. This is something that we're working on for the event, but for now, we'll just have to keep in mind who's playing with who. So let's take a look at teams first. We got Capoch playing as the English in yellow. His teammate is going to be Hera. Hera is apparently playing the pocket in blue French. And down south it is MarineLord as the flank, playing as the Rus. Whereas on the other side, we do have a Chinese flank over here for LucifroN in purple. We do have Cyan, French flank for TheMista. And we do have a Mongoose pocket for VortiX in red. So very, very different approaches over here for the two teams. You see they employ a French flank for VortiX's team and a French pocket for Hera's team. I do believe that the French pocket makes a little bit more sense in Age of Empires 2 when it comes to team games. Usually what you see is that the pocket player, so the one in between the two teammates, is a cavalry player, and the two flanks are archer civs. And that seems to be the approach that Hera and his team is taking over here. Capoch is going to be using English, which is obviously an archer civ. And on the other side, I do believe MarineLord is going to be using the Rus as a horse archer civ. So 2 archer civs on the flank and a cavalry civ on the pocket. Will be more interesting to see what VortiX's team is doing over here, because there is going to be a Mongol pocket. That could be a Mangudai civilization out there. That could be a trade boom civilization. So a lot of interesting things out there with it. Chinese could be your archer civilization, but it also could be a Fire Lancer style approach later in the game, as we do see 2 officers already out for LucifroN, one on the mill and one on the lumber camp. It's going to be difficult to keep track of everything that's happening, especially when it comes to all the fighting going on for Hunt. Speaking of fighting, that is the con going down for VortiX. So the first thing to talk about is that Rus, if you feel like it's an overpowered civilization in 1v1, you haven't seen it in team games. You see that MarineLord is already up to 255 gold, and because in team games you have a lot more huntables, you're talking about 2 patches of deer for each player still, but you have 6 players, so that's 12 patches of deer, you are able to get way more bounty compared to 1v1s. In 1v1s you have 2 patches of deer per player. Here is the same ratio, but you have 3 times the players. So it's much easier to get to level 2 bounty, probably even level 3, especially if you can get some wolves for yourself, which is something that MarineLord is doing. So I would very much expect Rus to be a guaranteed civilization pick in every game where it's available. In the team game tournament, which is called AoE4 Pro League, by the way, and it's played in the first 2 weekends of January, first one being the qualifiers and the second one being the main event. In that event, we decided on a civilization format in which you cannot repick the civilizations from the preceding game. So if you pick Rus, French, and English in the first game, you can't use them in game number 2, but you can reuse them in game number 3. So this is why I said that Rus should be an option whenever available, simply because the amount of hunt that you can grab is just enormous. You see, it's already 390, and you still have untouched patches of deer left and right, so you can still get quite a lot of gold from it. Professional scouts, obviously an option as well for all players, simply because there is so much hunt on the map that you really want to utilize that as much as possible. Alright, we have Capoch getting into Feudal Age first. He's popping out a couple of longbowmen. He's kind of far away from the opponent's flank over here, LucifroN, who's going up with the Imperial Academy. He's heavy on the stone department, makes me wonder if we are going to see a second town center from him. You see, he's already at 400 wood, and he's got 126 stone in the bank. We do have MarineLord using his scouts right now to harass VortiX over here, and it seems like VortiX is going to lose one villager over here, not something that he was paying attention to, apparently. He's aging up with the silver trees, so that's part of the reason why he's going for that pocket with the Mongols. He wants to go for that Mongol trade boom, and to me, it very much feels like he just completely ignored this gold mine, because this is villager number 2 going down, and it very much seems like MarineLord will be able to take villager number 3 here as well. So, bit careless, I would say, from VortiX over here. Loses 3 villagers on that gold mine. Now, he's in the pocket with the trade cards, though, so he can start trading. Now, he can do that to a teammate's market, or he can do that to one of the neutral markets. Looking at the neutral markets, this is the one over here. Might actually be defendable, because you see that his teammate, the Mista, is over there down south. Meanwhile, for MarineLord, it very much seems like he's going to play the good old-fashioned Rus Fast Castle here. He is up with the Golden Gate, and considering that you do have 500 bounty for him already, this Fast Castle is going to be very, very clean. It's much more powerful than compared to a 1v1. If you think about it, in a 1v1, basically the amount of transactions you can make, or you need to make to get to Castle Age, depends on how much bounty you get. If you get a lot of bounty, you have way less transactions to make, and that's exactly what we're seeing over here from MarineLord. He could actually sell 200 wood right now, and he would get the gold he needs. In fact, he's going to have food shortages. His gold income is so good. So this is one of those scenarios where he might actually use some of his gold to buy food for himself, because he's gonna have more transactions, and he's gonna have a ton of gold. He's just lacking food right now. Anyways, not much of an aggression so far, as I can see it. I do apologize in advance if I miss some action, because you see that those dots on the minimap are kind of tiny. The minimap is very crowded with all those neutral resources and stuff like that, and there is no filter button, so I can't just remove those resource icons and just look at the units. So there's going to be a lot going on, especially in later stages of the game, and you are going to have very, very tiny dots here to spot, but I'll do my best to spot everything that's going on. Looks like Hera's going to send one knight forward over here, as the Mista is ferrying in there. He has a stable going, as well as a school of cavalry, so I do assume that he used one of those to produce the knights that he started with, and the other one is going to be utilized on the deer. He is starting off with his own patch of huntables. Looks like Hera is also bringing in his own hunt, kind of standard with the Chinese over here, or the French, excuse me. For Capoch's English, there is apparently no deer ferrying being done. Instead, he's going pretty aggressive with those longbows. Will be spotted by LucifroN. If you look at his scout over here, he's hiding in the stealth forest, so he knows exactly Capoch is coming this way. Looking at LucifroN, he's already on 2 town centers. He's got a stable being supervised, and a blacksmith as well, still missing iron under mesh for his cavalry though. So the idea here for him is that he's up against an archer player like Capoch, so he's probably going to play horsemen, go for a defensive approach, and just try to go for that 2 town center boom, probably with the Song dynasty at some point, although he's currently still at Tang. He only has the Imperial Academy going for him, but he's got a decent amount of tax on that mill, and the lumber camp as well will help a lot, making sure that he's gonna have a decent amount of gold with, even if he doesn't have access to that gold mine, which seems to be the case. A couple of archers coming in here for VortiX, so VortiX was not making cavalry from the pocket, he's playing archers, and he's going to utilize that Mongol's pocket position just to make sure that he can have some trade going. And here come the nice charge. Mista has quite a lot of forces over here, supported by our purple player LucifroN's horsemen as well. Looks like VortiX isn't pursuing, and slowly but surely those longbowmen are getting away, but it looks like Mista is not giving up on this, and I think that's the right decision, especially with some horsemen coming from the other side. You probably want to smash that group of longbowmen. You really don't want to make them grow big in numbers, and this is an excellent fight over here for Mista and his friends. In the end, it is going to be the majority of Capoch's longbowmen getting forced back over here. Looks like Hera is getting ready to pick up Capoch's hunt over here. Capoch isn't really using it, so might as well take it for yourself. In the end, Capoch manages to save some of his longbows and regroups. So the idea here at this point is that Lucifron is just going to play 2 Town Center Boom and then probably play Lancers in Castle Age. Wouldn't be surprised to see sort of that fast Yuan Dynasty and go for Fire Lancers even. It might actually be straight Fire Lancers. Looks like Hera is going to spot the Lucifron scout over here as he's heading back with the hunt. He's got 7 scouts on the field and he's going to bring that hunt back for himself. Looking at the ages, MarineLord is already up to Castle Age, as you would expect with the Rus. He has the Abbey of the Trinity up, so he's going for the relics. Speaking of which, we also have more relics in a 3v3 setting. You see, it's like 4, 7, it's around 9 or 10 relics. And we're seeing horse archers being added. Behind this one, we do have VortiX with a decent trade eco going for him. If you look at the income per minutes right now, MarineLord has a ton of food eco, as you would expect for the Rus over here. Gold income, pretty spectacular for Hera. Not so amazing for VortiX, but you have to consider that VortiX isn't really mining gold. He's dropping the towers all around his trade to try and protect it as much as possible. Obviously for him, that trade boom is crucial for his success. He's picking this Mongol civilization from the pocket specifically so that he can go for the trade boom. I think this trade boom would work a lot better on maps that are much more defendable. So talk about a map like Confluence maybe, or talk about a map like French Pass. On this map, it's a little risky because once MarineLord arrives with the horsemen and the horse archers, you can just pick off those trade cards quite easily. We do have some archers over here for VortiX, but the numbers aren't necessarily spectacular, and reinforcing this side of the map is a little difficult as well. Still, once you get some towers up, especially with Spring Odin placements, that could do the trick. Other side, it looks like Hera and Capoch will be double teaming Lucifron. Lucifron doesn't really have a lot of forces out here, but he's got a tower up, he's got the Barbican of the Sun, so now we're talking about Song Dynasty, and I do see double ranges coming in, and he's going for the Jugenu. Now, the Jugenu are rather cheap if you consider their value, and they will perform pretty decently against those longbows, but they have a much shorter range, so if Capoch starts microing those longbows, it's gonna be difficult for Lucifron to find an engagement. We even have a defensive tower over here for VortiX. So this is probably a perfect opportunity to talk about the 3v3 setting. Because many people have been asking why 3v3, why not 2v2, why not 4v4? Part of the reason why is because 3v3, based on the data that we have found, is the most popular team game setting on the ladder. And the other thing with 3v3 is that this is one of those matchups where basically you can swing the battle in your favor on either side depending on which side the pocket goes for. If you think about a 4v4, that's more like separate 2v2s. Obviously, you can have both pockets supporting one flank and make it a 3v2 or a 3v1, but it's less common based on our experience with AoE 2, so part of the reason why we went for the 3v3 approach is because this way, by carefully positioning your armies, you can carve out a bit of an advantage for yourself, and that could be the situation here for Hera and Capoch. We do have Sacred Sites being captured by MarineLord. He's sort of just playing alone here with the Horsemen, as we got a big fight coming in. Looking at the numbers, that seems to be much, much better for the Mista's team here, but all 3 players have to join this specific fight in order to have a chance at repelling this one, because the numbers initially were way better for Hera's team. Knights will trade off against the Knights of Hera, and now the Jugenu and the archers should be able to finish off most of the longbows. But behind this one, there is MarineLord's horse archers, and that's the problem that Lucifron's team is facing right now. They managed to repel this attack, but it required all 3 players to engage over here, and that basically meant that MarineLord has not been accounted for. Now, he's got a fairly sizable force of horse archers coming in here. Looks like the Silver Tree has been moved closer to another stone mine for the next Ovu. But at this point, all those trade cards are just exposed to the horse archer fire. Obviously, they already returned their value, so it's not the end of the world that you're losing them right now. But obviously, it's a significant portion of your economy, so you would still prefer to keep them alive as much as possible. Looks like Capoch is coming in with a ramp push. We still have no gold access here for Lucifron on the front, and I don't think that he's got a backup gold mine. Looking at the ages, we only have Mista and MarineLord in Castle Age. Currently, VortiX is trying to pull away his trade cards, and it seems you can garrison trade cards into towers. We just learned something today. I knew that you could garrison horsemen or any kind of cavalry in your towers, but I didn't know you can do that with trade cards. That's actually a clever strategy for VortiX, and I would expect this one to be used in the event, because if you think about it, being able to garrison those trade cards into towers that are just spread around in your trade basically has the same effect as being able to garrison villagers into town centers. They will be idle, but they won't die, and the moment the enemy disappears from the battlefield, you can go back trading. So that's a very, very clever idea here from VortiX. I gotta love that. The key problem that they're facing is that MarineLord has not been touched for a long, long time, and that is already a scary force of horse archers. We're talking about 35 horse archers, and that alone is gonna be very problematic to deal with. And we haven't even talked about the fact that Capoch has a fairly sizable force of longbows, and of course, you do have Hera with some heavy cavalry. He's up to Castle Age as well, so he's got Veteran Royal Knights in. 3 Rams on the way for Capoch, supported by around... how much is that? 28 longbows. Looks like MarineLord behind this one is just capturing sacred sites. You see on the minimap, this is a green sacred site, but it shows as yellow. That's a little deceiving. Sometimes the sacred sites that are captured show as your teammate's color, but the minimap is the one that's accurate as far as I know. And if MarineLord goes into this one, he shouldn't be neutralizing it. Yep, he's not neutralizing it, so that's a sign that this is his sacred site. So the minimap is the one that's relevant. Looks like MarineLord is going to shift all his attention to the right side. It's going to be a triple team on LucifroN. LucifroN has a powerful economy. We're talking about 72 villagers, but he hasn't really been making army, and that could backfire pretty fast, especially because he's still feudal age and he's up against 2 Castle Age players, MarineLord and Hera, and I do believe Capoch was also going up. So this is gonna be an extremely difficult hold to make it happen. 4 Rams, talk about 30 longbows, a horde of horse archers, and even Mista's knight numbers seem to be inferior compared to Hera's ones. We got some lancers and archers here from VortiX, but I feel like that these numbers are just insufficient here, and LucifroN's base might just get steamrolled. 4 Rams should be able to make quick work with all those landmarks as well. That's the Imperial Academy, the Barbican of the Sun, and the Town Center. That's all you have to destroy to knock LucifroN out of the game. Now, this is probably a question that's very common among you if you haven't really seen a lot of team games, because even though this fighting is going on, I do believe that the result should be obvious based on the numbers advantage that MarineLord's team is having over here. So, what happens if one player loses all his landmarks? Will his team be defeated? And the answer is no. The only player that gets defeated is the one that loses all of those landmarks. So, if LucifroN loses everything here, he gets defeated, but his teammates can play on. Now, obviously, once one player gets defeated from one team, it's extremely difficult to win a game 2 versus 1, but in certain situations it might not be impossible. So your team won't get automatically defeated if one player loses all the landmarks, but in this case, obviously, LucifroN was completely annihilated, and in the end, part of this, I do believe, is just Rus being extremely powerful in any kind of team game setting, regardless of the horse archers. It's not just the horse archers over here, it's also the fact that you can get to level 3 bounty without any major problems. And of course, horse archers help a lot with mobility and archer play, but really, even if horse archers weren't broken, because as far as I know there is a bug with them, even if they weren't broken, you would still have a very powerful build with the Rus here. I think it's actually one of the strongest team game civilizations out there. The idea for the Chinese to go for a double TC Song Dynasty boom could work in team games, but I feel like it's something that you can only do from the pocket. So if you think about it, VortiX went for Silver 3 trade boom. That's a very, very economy heavy approach with minimal army investment for him. Very eco heavy approach as well for LucifroN. And in the end, I feel like the key thing was that you simply didn't have army on the field for VortiX's team, because both the pocket and one flank went for a very eco-heavy approach, and they just got outnumbered really heavily. Let's take a quick look at the statistics over here. Because this is a recorded game, I had to pull that up separately, so that's part of the reason why we had a bit of a downtime over here. But if you look at the villager count, how should we do this? So look at... oh yeah, the colors are different from the in-game ones. That's a known thing with recorded games, so the colors will be different. But if you look at LucifroN's villager count, compared to, let's say, Hera's one, slightly better, but not that much. It needs some time until you can build that villager lead up with the Chinese. But if you look at the army numbers, and that's what I'm interested in, would be nice to see a total team military count. Marine Lord, by far the best army over here, obviously it's the Rus power, but it's not just Marine Lord's army. It was also Capoch's army being the second largest. VortiX had a fairly sizable force, but of course, Mista here, with the cavalry also lower than Hera's one. So for the majority of the game, the army numbers were way better for Capoch's team. I feel like the largest army numbers for team games are also broken because these seem to be completely unrealistic numbers. 116 should not really be a thing. Eco is probably a better number to look at. Hera with 11,000 food obviously has been ferrying in the air with the French. He probably has even gotten the survival techniques upgrade. All right, let's go into game number 2. There's a lot to discuss with all these team games, obviously. Even in 1v1s, you can spend 2 or 3 minutes evaluating the statistics. But when you have a team game with 6 players in, that's where it gets really complex. Okay, it looks like we're going to Boulder Bay over here. Now, when it comes to the civilization rules of the tournament, as I said, you can't reuse the civilizations that you used in the directly preceding game. So in game number 2, you can't use the civilization you used in game number 1. And of course, you can't have 2 players using the same civilization from the same team. So you can't just go triple French. Instead, I do assume that one of the things that you could do is have something like Rus, French, Holy Roman Empire seems like a nasty combination on water. I can see Chinese working, especially on Boulder Bay, simply because at some point you might be fighting for land, and Chinese is just such a good late game civilization on land that even though it's not spectacular on water at the beginning, it might justify it being picked. Looks like we do have the civilizations, so we have Hera, MarineLord, and Capoch using Chinese, Holy Roman Empire, and Mongols. And on the other side, we do have VortiX with Rus, LucifroN with the Holy Roman Empire, and Delhi for the Mista. So, as I said, since both teams used up their French on the Arabia game, they won't be able to go for French in this one. They have to pick something else. Holy Roman Empire is a somewhat obvious choice over here. It's a powerful water civilization, good economy. With all those relics out there, you should have no major issues grabbing free for your Regnis Cathedral. So a lot to love about the Holy Roman Empire here. And as I said, you sort of don't have the chance to go for France over here if you went for it in game number 1. Delhi is an interesting civilization pick, though. I'm curious to see what the Mista has on his mind with it. With that being said, let's jump into game number 2 over here. Welcome to Boulder Bay. On the northern side of the map, we do have Hera and his team. The colors won't be matching the first game's colors. That's a known thing as well. Players don't have the option to pick colors. So the colors that are associated with them is actually in the order in which they enter the lobby. So if they enter in different order, which is quite common because they just invite each other and whoever clicks the accept button faster gets into the lobby faster. So because they join in a different order, their colors will be different from game number 1. Obviously, this is something that we've told Microsoft that, hey, color picking would be a very nice thing in a game in 2021, but hopefully that's a thing that they will implement in the foreseeable future. Anyways, here is the team for Hera. Hera is sort of in between his 2 teammates, but pretty much far to the south, which is a positive and a negative at the same time. First off, he's closer to water, so he can go for that dock a tiny bit faster than his teammates. But he's also kind of isolated from his teammates compared to what LucifroN is from his own. So we will have MarineLord playing as the Chinese here in red. On the left side, we have Capoch playing as the purple with the Mongols, and Holy Roman Empire for Hera in blue. I kind of like this trio of civilizations: Chinese, late game, powerful civilization on land as well. This is a map where you aren't really going to get pushed on land that much, so a double town center Song Dynasty boom supported by some fishing eco could work very nicely. You have the Mongols here, which do have a decent water play. They do have the piracy upgrade, or piracy, which gives them resources upon setting boats or combat ships on fire. That could be a nice one to have. And we have Hera, of course, with the Holy Roman Empire. Very powerful land economy, decent water play. That's the clear combination. All 3 players place their docks rather close to each other, so it's going to be quite easy for them to support each other. Whereas on the other side, we do have TheMista playing as a deli flank here in teal. We have Yellow Pocket, Holy Roman Empire for LucifroN, and Rus for VortiX in green. As much as I praised the Rus for being very powerful on Arabia in the previous game, that applies to this scenario as well. Look at this. All the hunt out here will provide a ton of bounty for VortiX, and that helps a lot when it comes to getting those combat ships out in Feudal Age. Now, the reason why I'm not necessarily that big of a fan of using the Rus over here on this map compared to Arabia is that on Border Bay, you don't go for a hunting cabin, so you don't have a ton of scouts. It takes some time to get that bounty. You will still have it, and you see he's already going to be at level 2, so it's not the end of the world. But I feel like on Arabia, you can accumulate a lot more bounty because you're going to have more scouts at the beginning. Rus is still a powerful water civilization over here, one of the best water booms out there. You can really just decide how many fishing ships you want to convert into combat ships before a fight. So you really have a very powerful fishing economy unless you convert it to combat ships. This is not something that any other civilization can do. Any other civilization has either fishing ships made or combat ships made on dock. The Rus can just make fishing ships all day, all night, and then decide how many of them will be converted to combat ships. So they only have just enough to fight off the enemies, and everything else is going to be on fishing, and that is what Mista was thinking about. I completely forgot about the fact that Delhi fishing ships can shoot at enemies, and that's exactly what we're seeing over here. Hera gets away with that low HP scout out there, and you see LucifroN is bringing in the scouts. Honestly, this could have been combined with Mongol scouts. I would have loved to see that. Because if you think about it, Mongol scouts would have been able to burn down the docks, and then there is just no escape for those ships. That would have been absolutely spectacular. Looks like those Delhi fishing ships for the Mista are already causing chaos, and here come the scouts. We have a second scout added from both LucifroN and the Mista over here. They use their town centers for that, and they're burning down those docks already. VortiX on the way to Feudal Age, and the Rus is also very much capable of putting up early Feudal Age aggression. They can convert their fishing ships into combat ships very fast, so wouldn't be surprised to see VortiX rushing up that Golden Gate, sending the majority of his fishing ships forward and converting them to combat ships, and it seems like Hera's team is gonna get pushed off from the water quite rapidly over here. You already have the dock of Capoch being burnt down. It's a little difficult to keep track of all those age ups because you have to be in the player's POV to do that, but to me it seems like we only have Feudal Age coming in here for Hera, so there isn't really gonna be a ton of combat ships out here for his team, and because of that, it seems somewhat unlikely that they will be able to protect their docks. This might be a very, very easy win on the water for the Mista's team, because you already have the dock gun for Capoch, and now it is MarineLord's fishing that's gonna be exposed. Let's see, it looks like VortiX isn't even pulling any combat ships. He's rushing up that Golden Gate with 9. He has a ton of bounty already, so he doesn't need a lot of transactions to go up to Castle Age, and he is going to have a good fishing eco, so this might still be a fast castle from VortiX, trying to get some warrior monks out to capture the relics. That's something to talk about for a later stage. Looks like Hera is up to Feudal Age, and he has another dock out here, so he can start working towards a galley. Now, those fishing ships here from the Delhi aren't particularly powerful, even though you have 4 or 5 of them. But once you got the Logia attack ships in, they can start smashing those fishing ships really fast, and as you see, that was the plan here. The Mista opens up, harasses that fish as much as he can. The scouts will be here to burn down the docks, and then once VortiX gets to Feudal Age, which will be a very nice timing because he's got a ton of bounty to work with, he's gonna be able to start popping out the Logia attack ships. Looks like a junk is out for MarineLord though. He's up to Feudal Age, and he is going to get automatically repaired as he's in the range of that dock. You see, there's barely any combat ships from VortiX. This is what I was referring to. It's not like he has to pop out 20. He can decide how many he wants to go for. He decided to go for a pretty passive approach over here. He was just like, okay, I'm gonna send forward 2 and finish this off. Hera is also going for a galley, so it seems like they're not giving up on the water this easily, but the dock of MarineLord is already on fire. Galley out for Hera. Hera still has 2 docks, and it looks like now Mista's team is gonna get pushed back a tiny bit. Dock is gonna get burnt down, but the scouts will be taken down by Hera's team. As things stand, however, we have a minimal amount of fishing working for MarineLord, basically a non-existent fishing eco for Hera. Capoch actually has some fishing ships working for him, and we are seeing some light chunks already hitting the field as well. So now the question is, who is going to be fighting on water for VortiX's team. Looks like he's getting some more Lodi attack ships in, so now he feels like, okay, we're getting outnumbered, it's time to convert some of my fishing economy into combat ships and start fighting this one off. Not a lot of fishing or not a lot of combat ships right now for LucifroN. He is just now coming in with the first galley. Looking at his resources, I'm curious if he's going for a fast castle, and the answer is yes. If he's not popping out a lot of combat ships, that's a sign that he might be going fast castle and he just wants to go for those early relics. Remember that there is a ton of relics out on the map, so you want to secure at least 3 for your Ragnitz Cathedral. Speaking of which, it's 2, 4, 5... Around 8 or so relics are out here, so quite a lot actually. We got some light chunks coming in here from Capoch. We also have some DAOs for Mista. So far, the biggest thing is that Mista's team has their fishing economy intact. So you see LucifroN with the best resource income per minute. But if you look at the food income, around 470 for Mista, 350 for VortiX. Capoch has 442 because Capoch has a decent fishing eco, but MarineLord and Hera's one aren't spectacular because they lost most of their fishing economy. Behind this one, VortiX should also think about trying to get a nice castle age time, because he's the one with the warrior monks, he's the one that could pick up relics fast, and he's the one that could potentially prevent his opponent's Holy Roman player to pick up the relics. Because one of the things that you can do with those warrior monks is deny relics from the Ragnitz Cathedral of the opponent's player. And that could be very, very valuable here. Looks like we got some Lodi attack ships coming out of the mist over here. Galley numbers are looking decent now for Hera's team. But once again, they're the ones defending, so it's their fishing economy that could be exposed. Quite a lot of light junks here from them. And the numbers are slowly rising for Capoch's team. Those Lodi attack ships aren't particularly powerful, only 400 HP. And we have about 6 or 7 light junks coming from behind. Some galleys as well from Hera. So I feel like this is the time to retreat. Now, once LucifroN gets to Castle Age, though, he's gonna have access to Hawks. And that's part of the reason why a Castle Age here would be beautiful. And in fact, he's already in Castle. And considering that the opponent only has archer ships, so galleys, light chunks, and standard junks, just a couple of Hawks can be a devastating unit. Hawks are meant to destroy archer ships, and they should be able to perform really well against the fleet of either player from Capoch's team. MarineLord is up to Castle Age as well, though, and that will allow him to go for war junks. Wouldn't be surprised to see some coming out already. Indeed, here come the war junks, so those will be the ones matching the Hawks from MarineLord's team, or from VortiX's team, excuse me. Behind this one, we have no Castle Age yet for VortiX, so relics aren't being picked up by him. I would be surprised to see LucifroN not moving out for relics, and indeed that's the case. Relics are being brought in to the Ragnitz Cathedral. On the water, we do have a rather passive couple of moments over here, but Hawks are already coming out for LucifroN. Once we get a lot of Hawks out, demos will be much more relevant, but until we have a lot of these archer ships in here, demolition ships shouldn't be able to do much. Looks like Capoch's fishing eco is going to get taken down. It looks like Mista is also able to isolate one light junk over here, so might be able to take that before it's able to regroup with the others. And here come the Hawks. They will be spitting to win, as you may have seen in previous 1v1 water fights. And those Hawks could decide the outcome of this battle. Because we got some Vor junks out there as well, but you see, Vor junks, not necessarily in the largest numbers over here. There's a demo coming up here. Quite a lot of archer ships for Hera. Looks like LucifroN is doing a nice job keeping the distance from his opponent's combat ships, and he was able to snipe down some of the vessels of Hera. Meanwhile, on this side, we do have some harassment coming from scouts, something that we have seen every once in a while. Compound of the Defender coming in for the Mista makes me feel like he might try to move up with some men-at-arms and wall off this corner for the Sacred Site. If you wall off this corner, you pretty much wall off 4 or 5 relics from your opponent. Would be extremely valuable. Gotta love how LucifroN is hiding a demo in that mist. He's just waiting for those war junks to jump upon. Also using the Hawks to nice efficiency over here. Hawks now moving in. There's a demo as well. Demo is unable to connect so many archer ships out there that a single demo won't do the trick. That's pretty common when you have so many archer ships out here. The demos will be sniped down by the archer ships. In fact, if you have multiple water players playing in team games, you probably want at least one to stay on archer ships, simply because those will be needed to snipe down those demolition ships. LucifroN still being aggressive with his Hawks. He just wants to make sure that his opponent isn't able to fish. And his team has quite a lot of fishing economy working for them. So you see Capoch is at 40 food per minute, for example. Demolition ships come in, and it looks like now LucifroN is opening up. Demolition ship coming in from the right side. That is going to fail. And it seems that Hera's team will be able to hold this. But once again, what for are they holding this? They have minimal fishing economy working for them. Whereas on the other side, their opponents have a considerable fishing eco out there. A lot of demo ships now coming out for LucifroN. Looks like on land, we have the Compound Defender up already for the Mista, but he's not walling up just yet. And it also seems like Capoch is now coming in with Mangadai. This is going to make it difficult to keep track of everything that's happening, because now we're going to have some water fighting going on, and we're also going to have some land fighting going on. Those Mangadai could be very impactful, though. We see some men-at-arms coming in from the Mista, so the idea probably was to wall off the side. And with Castle Age coming in for VortiX, he might be able to match those Mangadai with Horse Archers. But those Mangadai will be able to do quite a lot of damage before they are getting cleaned up, and that could be enough to swing the water battle back in the favor of Capoch's team. Mangadai now swooping in. They can just sort of run around, hit that wood line, run away, then hit VortiX's eco. So VortiX is going to have to start adding some Horse Archers himself to deal with that. Here come the Mangadai. They will be spotted by the men-at-arms. So now the Mista knows his opponent is coming in with Mangadai, and those Mangadai will also deny the Prelates from gathering the relics. You see, LucifroN is currently on 2 relics only. That is, ladies and gentlemen, 5 demos though for LucifroN, and I think... Wait a minute. I don't think it was spotted up until now. Now a single light junk moves in. Very, very clever from Capoch. He knew exactly that there could be demos in there, and he sent in 1 light junk. Nonetheless, those demos actually get some nice value for themselves, heavily damaging some of the other light junks, but this might have been a clutch move from Capoch. Being able to detect there was not 1, not 2, but 5 demos out there is crucial, because now their fleet is quite heavily outnumbering the opponent's ships. We got some Buglaws coming in as well. Now the Buglaws, the biggest problem with them is that while they're very versatile, they do have Archer and Ballista attack as well, so they do have bonus damage against the Incendiary ships. The problem is that brute force Ballista fight is going to be won by the War Junks over Buglaws. So in this scenario, you would much prefer to have combat ships that are just pure Ballista ships. Now, when you're fighting this close to the opponent's docks, you really have to be careful, because even if just 1 demo pops out, it's going to sink your entire fleet out here. And that's exactly what Hera needs to consider. Now, we're going to have LucifroN losing the majority of his fleet over here, as LucifroN's team is trying to regroup. Significant losses on both sides, but this is the first time in the game where the fishing economy of the Mista's team is getting challenged very heavily. There's also Mangadai raids coming somewhere. They're right here, right now. Haven't really been doing that much from what I've seen, and it looks like a demo ship just came in, sinking a significant force from Hera. Looks like the Mangadai are now swooping in. They will be countered by a couple of knights here from LucifroN, also going for a defensive tower. And we have seen some palisades coming up on the left side as well. So it's going to be more and more difficult for those Mangadai to run in. But there's just so many places to pay attention to, both for me and both for players. Fighting on water, fighting against that land aggression as well. Looks like LucifroN was trying to finish off Hera's straggler ships here. But that's an enormous fleet of War Junks for MarineLord now. And all of those will be repaired. So now you have to change approach here if you are LucifroN's team, I believe. You have to snipe down the archer ships of your opponent, because now it's only War Junks. And this is the domain where a lot of demolition ships could do the trick. VortiX actually transported... actually, it's not even VortiX, that is the Mista's Scholar. So looks like we do have 1 transport going through and capturing that sacred site. It's going to be a nice gold trickle out there. LucifroN trying to keep track of those Mangadai. They're currently hitting the good economy of Mr. VortiX. VortiX has to go for defensive towers, doesn't have his army to fight against this one. He's just now making archer ranges. Looks like the water fight is going to be peaceful for the time being. LucifroN is actually at 0 food income, so all of his food economy was on water. Here comes another fight, and once again, with all those ballista ships out there, just a couple of demos could do the trick, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Demos sandwiching the fleet of MarineLord, and quite a lot of ships will go down to the bottom of the pond. Still, nice splitting up And in the end, MarineLord will be able to retain most of his ballista ships and force the Lucifron's fleet to retreat. Mangudai is still harassing VortiX from behind. As things stand, we have 3 relics for the Ragna's Cathedral of Lucifron, and I would think that that's something similar for Hera. No, he's just bringing up the next relics. Let's look at the income per minute while we have some peaceful moments in here. There's a lot of things happening at the same time. Mangudai swooping in once again by Capoch now having the veterancy upgrade as well. It's a little difficult to keep track of all of those resources, but LucifroN and Mista are the 2 players with 1000 plus gold income per minute. Obviously, part of that comes from Lucifron's Ragna's Cathedral, but on the other hand, these Mangudai are just coming in to slaughter the lumberjacks of Lucifron, and that could be massive. Because losing all those lumberjacks means that it's going to be difficult to rebuild your fleet. Here comes the navy of MarineLord, however, and that's a huge fleet of junks. Behind this one, it seems like Mista's team is controlling the sacred sites now, so that's going to be a factor to look at for Hera's team. But for now, MarineLord is just going to come in, spinning to win, and that much firepower can just destroy docks in a matter of seconds. There might be a demo coming out of this one for VortiX, but it's going to get destroyed just before that. Demo is once again trying to dive in, but just getting sniped down by so many ballista shots. Pyrotechnics, or excuse me, not even pyrotechnics, but explosives. The technology that increases your blast radius for your demo ships could be very, very helpful here, but obviously that's an Imperial Age upgrade, so with no Imperial Age for either side yet, that's not gonna work out that well. Mista charging in with those demos, but once again will get destroyed quite easily by those war junks. Still some demos out here for the Mista, but now the navy numbers for Lucifron's team are just non-existent. And suddenly behind this one, we're seeing some fishing eco appear for MarineLord. MarineLord's team is taking over on the water. Still, you do have a sacred site over here and one sacred site over here, so technically they have a sacred site countdown going for them. There is a Hulk coming out of this one, no demo. Imperial Age is in for Lucifron. Remember, he is the Holy Roman Empire, so he can age up quite fast to Imperial Age, especially with the Palace of Swabia demo came in here, failed to get major damage done. So if Lucifron is able to get some docks in and get some demos with explosives, that could swing the battle in their favor. The problem that they're facing right now is that their docks are already gone, so unless he's able to sneak up some docks on the right side, it's going to be difficult to come back on the water. We got some war elephants coming in here for Mista though. Lucifron with his own prelate, he's also going to heal them, and with the compound of the defender, the Delhi are able to build fortifications with their infantry, like stone fortifications, and that's exactly what you're seeing. Just a couple of spearmen and men-at-arms here making the stone walls. MarineLord is going to send in his war chunks though, and this is where it gets interesting. This sacred site is so close to the water that those war chunks could deny it, but I feel like that's not even the sacred site that they have to target. What MarineLord needs to do is go for this one. They have the water control currently, might as well go for that. More Mangudai keep trickling in here, despite the fact that we have stone walls here. They can loop around to the north, and that's exactly what they're doing. And you see that VortiX's team is struggling big time to clean up those Mangudai. If you look at the KD for a brief moment, 77 killed for Capoch, that's by far the greatest. Most other players have lower than 30 because they've been killing ships, and you just simply don't have a lot of ships out there on the water. 77 is a sign that Capoch has been extremely active when it comes to killing villagers. So, those war junks will be denying the walls over here, which give a window for MarineLord's team to neutralize that sacred site. But as I said, they have to go for the one on the right side. Dock coming in here for Lucifron, but getting that up is going to be a challenge, because you see, Mangudai are coming to the right. Very clever once again from Capoch. He knows exactly that their opponents will have to try and sneak some docks up on them. And where else can you do it other than the right side? On the left side, you already have combat ships from MarineLord, so it has to be on the right. Explosives already coming in, but that's an upgrade that takes quite a lot of time to research, so I'm not even sure if this dock is staying up for 40 more seconds. Once you have that in, suddenly those demolition ships will be carrying nuclear torpedoes, so a single blast can wipe out the entire fleet of MarineLord. Mangudai once again working to perfect efficiency over here, and I'm not gonna lie, I think if this game is won, it's probably gonna be won on the Mangudai play of Capoch, because he's been killing villagers left and right. We'll look at the villager graphs after this game. But I'm curious how many he killed. Would be nice to keep track of that, but there's just so many things happening at the same time. And that was the dog that was getting explosives, I do believe. So explosives is not in for LucifroN. He's gonna get one demo ship in here, but it's gonna get instantly sniped down. They just have no chance of coming back on the water at this point. And as I said, while they are holding this sacred site, we already have Hera preparing some knights in here. But the bigger thing is that you could just transport 2 knights here, neutralize that sacred site, and stop the countdown. Stone walls coming in here for the Mista, but they're losing map control quite rapidly. Hera getting some knights out. Let's see, is Hera in Imperial? Yes, he is. He is up with the Palace of Swabia. Considering that they can have a fish boom here as well, and this game was already quite long, so Hera probably has a decent amount of villagers. Yeah, he's at 86. You could have justified going up with the Alsbach Palace instead, because Alsbach Palace would have helped fortify this front line a little bit better. It's not an issue that he went up with the Palace of Swabia. It works perfectly fine, but he won't be able to use it as much as he could in like a 1v1 or in a game where he went for a little bit faster Imperial. We're already at 23 minutes, so not going to be perfect efficiency, but still perfectly fine for Hera. Mista up to Imperial Age as well. With the Delhi, this is where the Delhi problems usually come in. You need so many scholars to make those researches happen. The Delhi are great when it comes to that early pressure with the fishing ships, but after that they are just going to turn into a little bit underwhelming of a unit. These War Elephants don't have the Imperial Age upgrades, and Hera's Knights already have Elite, so they should have no trouble cleaning this one up. And that should be Hera neutralizing this sacred site, although, as I said, it won't really matter that they're neutralizing this one because they will be taking this one anyways. I don't see any water trade going on, which is something that I always mention when it comes to Boulder Bay. The water trade is extremely good on this map, so it's something that you can definitely go for. Very nice play from MarineLord to spread out his war junks to deny all parts of the shoreline. So really, there's just a minimal chance for the opponents to redock. You see, LucifroN is trying his best, but it will be immediately spotted by MarineLord. He can just dispatch a couple of combat ships to that side. Let's look at the resource income per minute. Missed at 2100 food per minute. That's pretty impressive, I'm not gonna lie. Not exactly sure where it comes from. Seems to have quite a lot of berry villas that probably boosts it quite a bit. 1600 for Capoch. Notably, VortiX is the only player that has not reached Imperial Age just yet. He's on 3 town centers, however. But what is he gonna do now? That's the question. In general, I'm not exactly sure what VortiX's team can do in this situation. Because now their opponents have the water control, so there is a lot of fishing to be had here. You see, MarineLord is not shying away from popping out 20 plus fishing ships. They are already getting pushed on land pretty heavily, so they will lose land control as well. Their opponents will have way better economy, and I believe that MarineLord's team will be able to secure this corner to trade with this neutral market, and this market will also be there for trading. No trade or no markets in this corners just yet. Now, compared to 1v1, one of the differences is that you can trade with your teammates here, so you don't need the neutral markets necessarily to trade. But still, the fact you don't have any corner of this map for VortiX's team is concerning, because that way you don't have very efficient trade routes. The trade routes increase in efficiency based on the travel distance. So you need a corner-to-corner trade to be the most efficient possible. Here comes Hera with the Knights. Looks like Mista's got some walls up here, which end at this very position. A couple of Tower Elephants will be able to fight off these Knights, I do believe, but I think Hera's just gonna run away. Is he even gonna run away? Nope. He's charging in, and he's going to take down the majority of those elephants. The elephants will be slaughtered by all the knights. You see, Mista is trying to get some nice choke points in here with the berries, but those are just fully upgraded Imperial Age elephant or knights versus Castle Age upgrade elephants. It takes just so much time for those Delhi elephants to be upgraded. Looks like reinforcements are coming in here though, and as much as the Cav Archers were powerful in the previous game, for the Rus, they're also powerful over here. They don't have the Imperial Age upgrades just yet because VortiX is only in Castle Age, but these bad boys also don't cost gold for you, and that's a very, very valuable asset when you have limited map control and just limited amount of gold accessible. Looks like we will have the sacred site being neutralized and now taken over here as well. Hera is going to take over the sacred site. And as things stand, Mista is going to continue with elephants. We do have some knights coming in from LucifroN, horse archers from VortiX. The question is, how close is VortiX to Imperial Age? And the answer is, unless he's aging up right now, he's very far. Okay, he's aging up right now, and that is going to be the armory. So he's going to have armory, but where is that? It's right here, the high armory, all the way at the back here. They need to be mindful about the fact that the landing can occur any moment, because they don't have any kind of shoreline control. So Hera doesn't necessarily have to push from this specific angle. In fact, he can think about transporting some of his knights to the back of the opponent's base anytime, and that's probably the most exposed part of the map for VortiX's team. Knights now coming in for Hera. He's tempted to charge in, but he's waiting patiently. Now it's Imperial Age for VortiX, so he's going to get the Elite Horse Archer upgrade. He can get the +2 range as well from his archer ranges, so he's soon going to have a fairly formidable force to work with. And honestly, while the Horse Archers are definitely the cost-efficient and resource-efficient unit here, the Streltsy is also something that you can consider. In general, the Rus will be a very powerful asset here for VortiX's team. They are lacking map control, but the Horse Archer army is very cheap, and if you support that with a couple of Springolds, they outrange most of the siege weapons from their opponents, so they can snipe down any kind of siege attempt, try to make this a long game. But speaking of making this a long game, it looks like it's going to be Nest of Bees blasting through these walls over here, just one cannon supporting. Nest of Bees don't do particularly well against buildings, but you see, with that many of them, they still break those walls very, very easily, and it looks like Hera is coming in for a charge. Numbers seem to be way better for Hera's team. That is a whopping 49 elite knights. We only have about 20-ish for LucifroN. Quite a lot of war elephants over here, still not having the elite upgrade though, but that's where those Nest of Bees come into play. They will be just so good when it comes to all those clustered up elephants. We also have 2 sacred sites under the control of Hera's team, so currently there is a sacred site countdown going on. Right now, LucifroN's team is on a timer. Currently, Hera's team working towards blasting a larger hole through those walls, just to make sure that they can have a little bit more movement space with all those mobile units that they have. They have a fairly large force of Mangudai with elite upgrades, and elite as well for Hera with biology. Looks like we have a forward keep as well over here to secure this corner. Some more forward stables coming in. And Hera is probably preparing for the last charge over here. Elephants still lacking the elite upgrade. Do they even have an elite upgrade? I'm getting confused here. Hold on, chat. Do we have an elite upgrade? Seems like that's not the case, because otherwise they would have it already, and it would list it over here. I might have been debated the whole time. You don't see Tower War Elephants that frequently, so I just naturally thought that they have an elite upgrade, but it might not be the case. Now we got elite Horse Archers though, with 6.5 range. Still, numbers are way better for Hera's team. Those War Elephants really have to make wonders happen. They do have the crossbows equipped, as you see over here, so they do have armor-piercing damage. By default, they don't have that. That's an upgrade that you can grab. And here comes the big fight. Knights not charging in for LucifroN yet. Instead, they are going in for a flanking maneuver. Nest of Bees setting up to unleash death and destruction on those War Elephants. And it looks like the cavalry of LucifroN is unable to get to those Nest of Bees. Still out there to take some shots. On the other hand, we do have those elephants relentlessly pushing forward, and the Mangudai will be slaughtered by the elephants, no problem. This is a fight that Hera's team is gonna get slaughtered in. I wasn't expecting this. The elephants are powerful, the Horse Archers are powerful, but I was expecting those Nest of Bees to contribute a little bit more. Still, fairly sizable force for Capoch over here, but all those knights got slaughtered. Remember, part of the reason why they got slaughtered is because there is a +11 versus heavy on those elephants. So with that crossbow upgrade, they do a lot better against knights. If these were only archers and not crossbowmen on top, they wouldn't do that well against those knights. Nonetheless, that was an exceptionally good fight for Mrs. Team given the circumstances. Still, there is a countdown going on though, and we also have limited amount of cavalry only on the field for LucifroN. Just a couple of knights out there. Flaming arrows in for VortiX, as Capoch's team is pushing deeper and deeper into the base of the Mista here. What is this even? A wonder! I'm just noticing this! I'm just noticing this. There's so many things happening over here. That's why Mista's team is not giving up. That's why they're not giving up. There's a Wonder countdown going on. Now, the Wonder countdown is actually longer than the Sacred Site countdown. Sacred Site is 10 minutes only, Wonder is 15. So, at this point, that still shouldn't work. We don't know how long we have until the Sacred Site victory, because that's not something that shows up on the overlay. But they had those Sacred Sites for some time, so I would assume that that countdown is going on. But that's the reason why Hera's team is pushing so relentlessly, because they have snuck a Wonder into the corner over here for LucifroN, so all they have to do is hold this for 11 minutes. Unless your opponent wins it with the Sacred Site victory. The Sacred Site victory, we should have a prompt on this side here. So, whenever we're getting close to that victory, we should have something pop up. They had that for around 5 or so minutes at minimum, so I would expect it to be around 5 minutes mark. I don't think that this Wonder play is going to work out, but not gonna lie, the idea is nice. It could have worked nicely if that Wonder was made a little faster. That's the reason why we don't have any cavalry for LucifroN. He was like, okay, I need to spend all my resources on that Wonder. The problem that they're facing now is that Mista is gonna get defeated here. So you see, Wonder is already going down. That shouldn't really be a factor at this point, aside from the fact that he's gonna lose control over the elephants. Actually, it's a big deal. Because obviously, the most important player when it comes to the Wonder victory would be LucifroN. He's the one controlling the Wonder. But the moment Mista gets defeated, he's going to lose control over all his elephants. So he won't be able to use that, and the opponents will just be able to avoid it as it is. Mista getting defeated right now, as you see, that was the Pass of the Sultan, the last landmark, and now all of those units turned gray. Wherever those elephants are, they are no longer a factor. I'm not even finding them. But I'm fairly certain that not all of them were killed. You see, there is some random elephants walking around over here. With that being said, it looks like LucifroN's team is going to tap out. What a crazy game. I did my best to keep track of everything that was happening, but it is just next to impossible. Water fighting, land fighting, Wonders. The spectator overlay isn't really helping with that either. But it is what it is. Very nice game over here. Where did this slip for VortiX's team? It's a little hard to tell. I feel like the biggest problem was that they just lost too much to those horse archers. So even though they had the fishing economy, they just lost way too much. If you look at the eco numbers, that's what I'm curious about. If you look at the villager numbers, assuming that the statistics in the end are right, let's look at the free players. Mista, VortiX, and LucifroN. Look at those drops every once in a while. -10. Some of that is fishing economy. Actually, it might not even be fishing economy. I'm not sure if this is summarized eco count. In the game, the villager count actually gives you a combined number of fish and villagers, I do believe. But regardless of that, at the end of the game here, you see LucifroN has been losing massive numbers. And they lost water at around 25 minutes. So these must have been villager kills. And I'm fairly certain that some of these early drops are also villager kills, not fishing eco going down. So part of the reason why this game snowballed out of control for VortiX's team is because they kept losing villagers. Compare that to the villager graphs of Hera's team. At the beginning, they lost some fishing eco, but that was basically it. For the majority of the game, they didn't lose much. I feel like Hera actually lost some villagers because he started deleting. Or he just sent them forward into their death because they needed population. But these parts don't really matter that much. They did have a great economy. And in the end, if you look at the eco numbers, 35 grand food for Hera, 34 grand for Capoch, 22 for LucifroN and VortiX. So those are massive difference over here. Hera also sitting at 39,000 gold, as opposed to everyone else in this game having less than 30,000. VortiX less than 15,000 over here. So these resources obviously help a ton when it comes to securing the game. That makes it 2-0 in the favor of Hera's team, and it looks like we're going into Lipany. So as I said, now that game number 2 is concluded, in game number 3 you can pick any civilization for each team that was not used in game number 2. So you can pick the ones that were used in game number 1 once again. So French, English are an option for Capoch's team. And considering that Lipany is very similar to Arabia, it's possible we're going to see that combination of French, Rus, and English again for Hera's team. Whereas we'll have to see what VortiX's team brings on the table, because they have so far tried some out-of-the-box strategies. We'll see how those work. Let's jump straight into game number 3. While we're loading up into the game, I just want to say that if you got any kind of feedback to how I'm spectating the team games right now, I'm more than happy to receive it. As I said, this is not something that I did a lot. The team games were just not played in a tournament setting so far. This is going to be the first major team game tournament coming up in January, so it's not something that I have a lot of experience or practice with, and it's also a little difficult to keep track of. You see a lot of things happening at the same time. Overlays aren't really helping you, so if you get some preferences or if you feel like something could be done differently, feel free to let me know, and we'll try to implement it into the casting to make sure that the viewer experience is as good as possible. Alright, so we're at Lipany. We will have purple, blue, and green. So actual cold colors, except for purple, on the left side versus right side. So it's left versus right. Pocket is going to be Hera playing as the French. We will have MarineLord playing as the flank in Rus in green, and down south it is Capoch's purple English. So they're going to repick the same civilizations over here. Whereas for VortiX's team, this time around it's Mista in the pocket. It is Mongols once again, and he's got the Ovu right next to a town center. That's a very nice place to start at. But it's also Mongols pocket once again. Chinese flank for LucifroN in teal, and it's going to be French flank for VortiX in yellow. So the civilizations are identical to the previous game. There are a couple of change-ups though. First of all, now it's Mista playing pocket and VortiX playing flank. And in the first game, we had the Chinese matching up against the English. That's going to be the case over here as well. So English versus Chinese down south, and up north it is going to be the Rus versus the French. So we're probably going to see something very similar to the previous game. Curious to see how VortiX's team will change things up, because they lost the first game quite decisively. We'll have to see if they alter their strategies based on that. MarineLord already going for the huntables over here. As you would expect, he's luring back the wolf. He already has the hunting cabin out. Now he's going for the bounty. So, as I said, in the previous game, the Rus work very nicely on Boulder Bay. Simply because the Rus have a very powerful early economy. That gold that you're getting from the bounty is extremely helpful when it comes to popping out your first fishing or for your first combat ships, and of course getting to feudal age. On the other hand, you only have one scout to work with unless you make one from your town center, because you're not going to be making the hunting cabin. That's what I want to say. You're not going to be making the hunting cabin, and because of that, you will only have one scout. You can capitalize on this bounty bonus a lot more for a Rus in a land game setting, where you actually are using that hunting cabin to pop out scouts, because you will be able to get a lot more bounty. You're almost guaranteed to get to that tier 3 level, and it's gonna come down to how much beyond you get. Now, you see, the amount of gold that you're gonna be getting here is enough to justify going for survival techniques, because you're gonna be just swimming in gold, and your main bottleneck when it comes to getting that fast castle going will actually be the food count. So getting that survival techniques in Dark Age can help MarineLord getting that food he needs as he's going up to castle. We have the council hall coming in here for Capoch, as you would expect. He's placing it close to his lumberjacks. His gold mine will be a little exposed this way though. We have a Barbican of the Sun coming in for LucifroN. So in the previous game, he went for the Imperial Academy. Now it's going to be Barbican of the Sun on the left side of his base, but that leaves this gold mine a little exposed at the back. And for the Mista, he actually goes for this big gold mine all the way down south, because his small gold mines are kind of exposed and they're on the front, so that might actually be safer. A pasture early for the Mista is something that we commonly see from Mongols nowadays. the pasture will be training the sheep faster when it's in the influence radius of the ovu. So sometimes we're seeing players just place one in their ovu and then have the sheep walk back. In this scenario, considering how close you are to your ovu, you can place it no problem because it's going to be very close to the town center anyways. It looks like we have deer stones coming in, so no trade boom at this time. Our Chinese player is also not on stone, right? Yeah, no stone gathered for LucifroN, so very different strategies from the first game by LucifroN's team. Gonna be no stone mining, gonna be no trade boom, probably a lot more army-focused approach. Looks like MarineLord is at 270 bounty right now, but he's far from done. I mean, there is a hunt here, there's a hunt here, and it is just going to be an easy way up to 500. And I do believe that he's just gonna go for that straight fast castle over there. He's gonna have so much gold that he's gonna be fine with 2 transactions on the Golden Gate, which is spectacular. Looks like we do have the Mista coming in, killing the hunt of LucifroN. That's awkward. This is not something that he should be doing. So here's the deal. If your opponent had a Rus player, I would 100% agree doing this. But right now you're actually taking away valuable gold from MarineLord. Because it's not like LucifroN is killing them, and MarineLord could come in and take this down, right? Once again, not the end of the world, but it's not something that's necessary. In fact, it's hurting MarineLord, because you see, if MarineLord had his scout nearby, he could have killed it. I think, wait, oh, never mind. Oh boy. The colors are tricking me. I do apologize. That was perfectly fine for Mista. For whatever reason, I thought the red player is taking down his opponent's hunt. No, Mista and LucifroN are teammates. Colors were very confusing over here for me. Okay, so reset mentally, that was a great decision. Obviously, you're up against MarineLord's Rus, so you want to take down the hunt as fast as possible. So, 100% agreed with Mista. I do apologize. Colors can be tricky here. This is my biggest concern when it comes to casting a team game event. Those colors will be just extremely difficult to look at. Because you see that the teams aren't organized by colors or by players or by any reasonable way. So, confusing players could happen. Nice move from Mista over here to snipe down the sheep from the back of MarineLord Scout. MarineLord at 420, bounty, nice. But he should have no trouble getting to just 500. He's going for the hunt right now. He's got 7 scouts out there. VortiX is sending the first knight forward. He's going to try to intercept those scouts. But 7 scouts should be able to pass by without any major problems. Meanwhile, on the left side, we have Horseman coming in here for LucifroN. Not a ton, though, and it looks like he's getting baited into the longbows of Capoch. Capoch takes down one, Capoch takes down the second one, and Capoch also saves his scout over here. Very, very nice fight for him. And now, we're looking at LucifroN, who's without any kind of army right now, and he is going to face a fairly decent amount of longbows out here. No blacksmith for Capoch just yet, so no rams. But that gold mine is already very exposed for LucifroN, so he could be in trouble here pretty soon. Mista is playing Mangudai. Now, the Mangudai could work nicely against the French players' melee cavalry. My problem with the Mangudai is that they're fairly expensive, they won't be trading very well with the longbows, and last but not least, the horse archers will be just a lot more cost-effective when it comes to Castle Age, and Castle Age it will be very soon for MarineLord. In fact, he's sending out villagers to gold, which is somewhat uncharacteristic of the Rus fast castle build. It's not like you need it, but if you want to go for a ton of gold units, like for example mass knights in castle or men-at-arms potentially, then it definitely helps. It looks like it's ranges though, so I'm a little puzzled why he's mining gold. He could just wait a tiny bit and sell 100 more wood. That could have been an option. This way he's going to be like 20 or so seconds faster to Castle Age, I believe, but he's going to have some villagers exposed. You see, he's gonna still have to buy the gold he needs here, so this won't really work out. And it looks like VortiX is coming in to swoop up some of the hunt. He gets away with 1 deer, maybe. Nope. The idea was nice, but VortiX didn't really have the scouts to make this work. Looks like now MarineLord is facing a ton of pressure though. Knights are coming in to idle his villagers, and you see, despite the fact that MarineLord now has the ticket and he could just sell 100 wood to get up to Castle Age, he's gonna still need to build that Abbey of the Trinity. So his Castle Age here was delayed a tiny bit. The Mangudai and the Horsemen did some work. Meanwhile, on the other side, we do have a big battle coming up though, as Hera's cavalry is going to be an excellent support here to the longbows of Capoch. Longbows and knights should be able to beat the horsemen back. Fairly sizable force of horsemen for LucifroN. He's at 8 horsemen. Also, 7 scouts that will absorb a lot of arrow fire, but the knights perform pretty well against both of those melee cavalry units. So at this point, as long as Hera has the knights nearby, they will be able to take down those horsemen. Looks like they might be switching focus towards the Mista, who has been quietly going up to Castle Age already. That is going to be the step adopt coming in for him. In fact, his Castle Age time might actually match the one from MarineLord, which is a pretty decent accomplishment, I must say. Horse archers, or Mangudai to be precise, coming in here from Mista might be able to do some damage to Hera's base here. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Mista comes in, but he's going to retreat when he sees the town center being garrisoned. He won't be killing a single will out there. Castle Age in for MarineLord, and he's going for the horse archers as you would expect. Coming in with the warrior monks as well to start picking up the relics, and he's swooping in to take some hunt from the opponent as well. Longbow still harassing LucifroN a ton. LucifroN, let's take a look at his base real quickly. He's not far away from Castle Age, but he's going into Song Dynasty instead. Looking at the upgrades, he does have the defense upgrade on the horseman. His numbers are fairly decent, but he's gonna be up against quite a lot of knights over here. Currently, 2 players are in Castle Age. We do have the Mongol Pocket, and we do have the Rus flank being in Castle. And it looks like it's just gonna be Mangudai and Lancers. That's a strategy that worked in the EGC Continental Clash against mass horse archers. I think it was pioneered by Omega. You have VortiX coming in here with the knights, and this could be a perfect surround. Many of those horsemen, however, fell to the knights, and, well, the numbers advantage wasn't the side of LucifroN and VortiX over here. The problem that they faced is that as long as Hera's knights are out there, they will be able to beat back the horsemen, and the longbows were just not surrounded at all. Very nice fight over there in the end. Currently, the knight numbers are better for Hera, and that helps a ton. Now we have some raids going in here though, so that's going to disrupt the flow of reinforcements from Hera. Might be something that helps even things out, and with some Mangudai on the field supported by some Castle Age Lancers, this might be a fight that Mista's team can win. But we have some scouts coming in on the right side supported by horse archers trying to burn down the gold income of VortiX. VortiX up to Castle Age, and that's going to allow him to get some veteran knights out, but he doesn't have gold income, and I just feel like their army numbers are not there once again. Knights charging in here for Hera, that's going to be a rather even trade. Those yellow knights don't have their Castle Age upgrades yet. We do have the nest, or the clock tower coming in here for LucifroN, but it is going to be an exposed clock tower, and the longbows will just be able to deny it. LucifroN won't be getting into Castle Age anytime soon. On the other side, it looks like Mista will be able to beat back the forces of MarineLord, but I feel like this is the time where Capoch just wants to camp this position. This is the gold mine of LucifroN, and LucifroN actually has to cancel that landmark. So the amount of resources you lose on that landmark depends on how much damage it took, and it took some damage, so you lost like 20% or so, but you're still getting the majority back for LucifroN, building the clock tower on the front. LucifroN did lose some officers as well in this fight, as on the right side we do have the horsemen, the lancers, and the Mangudai coming in. So the idea here is that the lancers will absorb the arrow fire, and the Mangudai can just keep chasing, and the Mangudai don't need to stop to shoot. You see, the cav archers have to stop when they want to shoot, whereas that's not something that the Mangudai need to do. So eventually, Lancer and Mangudai does beat Horse Archer. The problem that you're facing here is that the numbers aren't spectacular for the Mista, and the bigger problem that they're facing is that on the other side of the map, Capoch and Hera are just absolutely smashing LucifroN in the face. That is going to be about 5 or 6 villagers slaughtered in here, but the big thing is going to be the battering rams coming in. Battering rams already knocking on that town center, and the knight numbers are just not there for VortiX. If you look at his army numbers, he is sitting at 9. Compare that to Hera, who is sitting at 22, so much better knight numbers, and those are the knights that are swinging the battle in the favor of Capoch's team. MarineLord behind this one is securing 2 sacred sites as we speak. He was also collecting relics, so building up that already huge advantage. And at this point, LucifroN is just looking like he's in a very tough spot. He's unable to, actually he has the veteran horseman upgrade now, so that's a step forward. But now Hera's knight numbers are looking very good, and as long as those knights are there, they will just be able to smash the horsemen. The horsemen would perform nicely against the longbows, but they will struggle against those knights big time, and that town center is about to go down. The horsemen are launching a desperate charge over here, but you see the reaction from Hera is immediate. He knows exactly that he just needs to make sure that those longbows don't die to the horsemen. The town center is about to go down. Beautiful move from Hera to try and block the exit of the town center. You see he's camping his knights over here, knowing fully well that whenever those villagers pop out, he needs to be on top. 2 exits are on the right side and over here, so those are the ones that you're trying to block. Hera getting in between the villagers and the escape path, and LucifroN, as things stand, is going to just die here. Down to 18 villagers, and the horsemen of MarineLord might finish off those stragglers. It doesn't really matter, honestly, because at this point those rams will just start steamrolling buildings. LucifroN is pretty much defeated over here, and it would be a 2 versus 1, or excuse me, a 3 versus 2 for his opponents now. Seems next to impossible for VortiX's team, and Hera, Capoch, and MarineLord, one of the strongest teams in the competition, would march on to have a 3-0 win over here. The prize pool of this one was $150 put up by Hera, I do believe, and this was mainly a practice show match, but this has shown that Hera's team is just looking very powerful. Part of this is Rus being super powerful, but it's also how Hera is just going so aggressive on the feudal age knight approach. That is very nice, because he has had way better knight numbers than the opponent consistently in this game and in the first game as well. And having those knight numbers in your favor is also something that helps immensely winning these games. You see, now they are forcing Hera's forces back a tiny bit, but I mean, at this point, LucifroN is sitting at a whopping 0 villagers and 10 army. So, actually, oh yeah, he's dead. I'm just realizing, unless your teammate can repair your landmarks, LucifroN is out. Just think about it. LucifroN has no villagers left. How is he going to repair his landmarks? The only way that he would be able to do that is if your teammate is capable of repairing, but I have no idea if that's possible. Never tried it myself. Someone from you might actually know that. It really doesn't matter, because I feel like this game would have been over anyways, but it's just an interesting topic to talk about, because I have no idea if you can repair the teammate's landmark. If not, then LucifroN had no chance of coming back, because he had no town center, no villagers. Obviously, he could still receive resources from his teammate and just use them to make army, but he didn't really have a lot of production buildings, so that wouldn't really have been sustainable anyways. With that, Hera's team moves on to a 3-0 decisive victory in this show match. Once again, shout out to Hera for putting up the price for this one. He wanted to practice a little bit with his team, and he has shown that Hera, Capoch, and MarineLord is going to be a very difficult team to beat. Their civilization choices were pretty straightforward, understandable, and very powerful, I do believe. And I think many teams that might check these games will be like, okay, we gotta go for something similar when it comes to civilization approaches. The two teams had a very different idea on how to play the team games when it comes to civilization selections, and I feel like the civilization choices of Hera's team were better throughout this set. 3-0 for Hera, Capoch, and MarineLord. Thank you so much for joining up for today. If you have any kind of feedback on the casting or spectating of 3v3s, do let me know in the comments, because as I said, this is not something that I have done a lot before, because we didn't have any team game tournaments before. So I'm curious at your feedback, because I'm going to try and work towards delivering the best viewer experience for the team game event. Take care and see you next time.